Okay, so recently, as most of you have heard in the international news, it's quite difficult to miss it. There has been a major scandal in Britain again. It's revolving certain rape gangs, right, which operated for quite a while. And I remember covering this back in the day. The shocking nature of it wasn't the fact that it happened because every nation on earth has criminals. But the shocking nature was the response. The response was to sweep it under the rug. Very little media coverage. There was coverage, but not as much as you'd expect. Like, for instance, when the Catholic Church was involved in a similar scandal, the coverage was insane, right? And you would expect that the same would be replicated here. But secondly, it was the answer that the police gave. And the police said, well, we didn't want to do anything because we didn't want to be perceived as racist. And this just blew the mind of every single Eastern European that read the article, because it was like, well, this is unfathomable. Like, if it happened in our country, like, first of all, we would assume corruption, so the politicians would be audited. The entire police district, like every single police officers involved, would get fired and then investigated. And then they would look at the mayor, like, who's in charge of the police. I don't know what system British people have, but like in my country, it would probably be the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Like, those people would be under questioning just nonstop. It's like, how was this allowed? How was it possible? And then there would be like a cultural shift. It's like, who told the police officers, who indoctrinated them to believe that appearing non-racist is actually more important than to provide the safety and well-being of citizens, right? So, like, that situation here in Eastern Europe would be completely unfathomable. But not only did it happen in Britain, but as Sargon points out in this article from the Lotus Eater, asking, well, why aren't people revolting? Because again, like, if this happened in Poland, if it happened in Hungary, even in Romania, if it happened, like, people would be out on the streets. They would be absolutely livid about it. They would demand change. They would demand politicians to step down. Like, the entire political career of politicians would be destroyed over this scandal. We had something similar of a much, much, much smaller scale. We had like a nightclub here that caught fire due to safety regulations, and a lot of teenagers burned to death. And so, like, the scandal was absolutely immense, and it went with the fall of almost an entire political class, right? So, like, imagine if something smaller by comparison to what happened in Britain happened here, and that was the answer. Imagine what would happen if people found out that this systemic abuse was happening nationwide, and the politicians were afraid of being called racist. And so, like, Sargon explains here, why he believes that British people are up in arms over this, and he gives, like, his opinion as a British person living within the culture. Talks about the lack of coherent English identity, the moral unity between the people and the state. We don't know how to deal with minority communities. I mean, come on, you guys dealt with the Irish and the Scottish. Like, you had your own minorities in the past, right? Like, lack of leadership, blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm not going to dismiss his argument. Obviously, everyone can go and read it. He doesn't put it under a paywall. As you can see, it's almost getting like 20,000 views. But I want to give you my take on why this happened. Like, again, the question is, like, why is it happening there, but it's not happening here? And so maybe a person that's from the outside could actually give you the answers that you can't see if you live in the inside. So the first problem would be the British society that is organized heavily on class. So much so that even the Americans don't understand it. There is like a deep-rooted heritage in the mindset of class. And British people have classism, right? Now, what is class? Class doesn't necessarily mean that you have a rich person and a poor person. No, like, class is an entire mindset, way of behaving. It comes with prestige, like who your family is, right? And so, like, the people from the upper class have certain expectation of the lower classes and vice versa. And in this situation, because most of the girls that were affected were from lower class, impoverished people, like people from orphanages, people that were living in low class areas, the people in charge didn't care, right? Like they had their own business, they had their own agenda, and this was very inconveniencing. So again, like sweep under the rug type of thing. Another problem is with class has to do with how compatible it is with woke ideology. Like they're almost there to fit with one another, right? Like the woke ideology already spreads the world based on class. So you have like the straight cisgender white man as the untouchable. And then like you have like the various classes based on race, ethnicity, factions. And then, somehow the untouchable can actually become on the top. Like, it's a very weird ideology where if you're an untouchable, but you're doing, like, leftist activism, so you're, like, a politician for the left, you actually become, like, on top as long as you say the correct things. So this is how you have, like, police that paints their cars in rainbow or partakes in LGBT marches using the rainbow flag and everything. It's because like they're the untouchable, like the straight cisgender white man, but they're doing the thing, like they're doing the activism. They're showing that they're not like the others, like they're the special type that are the enforcers. So they're on top, right? So by doing this performative gestures, by like adhering to the ideology, is how they become from a lower class type of individual to an upper class stratus. In the case of the police officers, like they would probably represent more like the warrior class, right? So like they're pledging loyalty not to the government but to labor specifically. At least that's how I view it. And so like when you have like this mindset, it's very compatible with the woke ideology. Meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, we have the mindset of poverty. And poverty forces you to either become extremely collectivist, like in Asia, or extremely individualistic, like in Eastern Europe. So individualistic means that you're basically told that, look, the government wants your well-being. So you need to make absolutely sure that it doesn't take it away from you. The government is not to be trusted. Everything that the government does is probably because the politicians want to enrich themselves, that they want to restrict your rights so that you can't protest, they want to do this and then blah, blah, blah. So like already you have like the mindset that indeed what Sargon says here, the moral unity between the English and the state. Like here, the moral unity is how we can throw a wrench into the government, how we can vote for the clown car to make the government ineffective so that it stops passing legislation that raises our taxes and makes financial instability. Right? Like this is the mind of the public. And then you have like the individualism, which is like how can you enrich yourself, right? Like no one is there to protect you, no one is there to save you, no one is there. Like you need to become independent, and you are the one that has to take care of your family because no one else will, right? Like the government won't take care of your family, other people won't take care of your family, you will take care of your family. And so you have like this mindset where the father will actually scold the daughter and they will tell her, no, you're not going to go to journalist school because you're not going to grow up as a parasite in my household, leeching off my food and leeching off my money. No, you're actually going to medicine, you're going to learn how to become a doctor, and then you'll fuck off. You'll be independent, you'll have your own money, and then you'll start your own family away from me. That is the mindset here in Eastern Europe. And this is how, like, parents train their children. It's a very individualistic mindset, right? So, like, if you come with a bullshit where it's, like, woke identitarianism and it's, like, you and all the other men are responsible, like, fuck off. Like, no, there is no me and other men. Like, other men have it in for me. It's me, my family, that's fucking it. Now, if you want to collaborate on something, right? If you have, like, a project that requires collaboration, I may choose to associate myself with you, but don't fucking put me in the same pot just for arbitrary characteristics. So fuck off, right? And so, like, this is a completely different mindset that exists here in Eastern Europe and doesn't exist in the Western world. In the Western world, it's like, oh, we're all in this together. It's like, no, fuck that shit. You're not in this together. You're here for your family and your loved ones and what's good for them. And if the country goes to shit, then we're going to go to Poland. And if Poland goes to shit, then we're going to go to the United States. We're just, like, at the end of the day, me and my family is the pillar. That's what matters. That's what I'm going to do. And everyone else has it in for me. And with this mindset, woke ideology just doesn't function. It can't exist. And in fact, like, a lot of philosophical issues and trying to talk about our society and the collapse of Roman Empire, no, it just doesn't work with my people. Because we just don't fucking care, right? Like, what I care is what I put tomorrow on the table to feed my family, that's it. Society can go to hell. I'll just leave and go somewhere else. I don't fucking care. Because society doesn't care about me either. This is what decades of communism does to people. Maybe the new generation is not like this, but it's very difficult to try and make woke arguments when this is the mindset of the population. Again, like Westerners just don't understand this mindset. They think it's bad. They think it's evil. Maybe it is, but we don't have woke shit over here. And so the other part is the concern for first world problems. Like, this is something that Sargon missed. The concern for first world problems was very, very high, especially in Britain, but also in France and Germany. And this is what happens when people have prosperity. Prosperity is not actually good, it turns out. Despite common sense, you think you want prosperity. You don't want it. When you don't have prosperity, people get together. People are more tolerant of each other because you get to work with various people that you may morally disagree, but at the end of the day, it puts food on the table of your family. And so you're going to have to work with various people that, again, morally you would be at odds with, but it requires a project. It requires getting a business started. It requires you doing something. Without it, all of you go hungry, right? So now you're working with the leftists. Now you're working with the communists. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, if you don't, you get to starve. The communist is the same. He has to work with you. He has to be tolerant. Otherwise, he starves. When it's a land of plenty, then people get to be more picky. Then people get to be like, I saw what you posted 15 years ago on social media, and therefore I don't want to associate with you. Right? Like, that is not a luxury people in Eastern Europe had. Like, the only thing that you would not associate with someone else is if they were a crook, if they wanted to steal your money, or if they were incompetent at their job. Other than that, the moral fogging, like you're casting fog on the issue because, he believes in such. Who fucking cares? Can he do the work? Yes. Okay, he's hired. Right? Like, you don't get to be like morality and shit. And so, like, the West was very high on morals and how many seconds can you stare at a woman before it becomes sexual abuse because you're staring? Like that type of nonsense. And so the ideology here in Romania, if you had a person coming up and talking to you about your pronouns, the answer would have been like, brother, are you mentally ill? Like, I can't put food on the table and you're talking to me about pronouns? Get the fuck out of here. You're wasting my time. Like, this time I can actually use in order to figure out how to get a job. Like, come back to me when you figure out how I can make money. Now, if you can tell me how I can monetize the pronouns, if you're telling me like how I can make cash for the pronouns, then we have a conversation, but I didn't have fuck off. That's the Eastern European mentality, right? Like, if it doesn't produce some value for me, my family, or monetary gain, I don't give a shit. Because again, like, everyone is out to get me, right? Like, I'm the only one caring for my family, and if I'm not there, then who will? So it's this like strong morality. And if you want to make moral arguments to people, you have to explain it in a way how it benefits them or how it benefits their family. If you come with an ideology, we need to be more tolerant because blah, blah, blah. Like, be more tolerant to who? They're not my family. I don't care. LGBT people.